All right. If you're watching this right now, you're probably a system changer. You consider yourself a system changer, or maybe you're a leader. Maybe you are someone that wants to become a leader, or maybe you are someone who does not conform with the status quo and wants to be the change that you want to see in the world. And that's why you're here. And today we're going to be talking about system change, in particular, system change in businesses to build a better future. So let's dive straight in. And if you want to download the PDF that I'm using right now, you can actually do that for free by simply going to our website, ColivingDAO.com. And there's a section called free resources. You can also directly go to the URL, colivingdao.com/free. And you'll be able to download system changing businesses to build a better future. And myself and my co-founder, Gareth, went through this. We actually produced this. And what we'll do today, we'll cover the basics of what a system changing business is. And let's see exactly, first of all, why this is important. And if you're here right now, you probably already feel that it's important. Maybe you have a mission, maybe you have a vision, maybe you have a meaning, a purpose, and you want to do something about that rather than just dreaming. You're a doer and you want to do something to realize the vision you have or simply build a better future, which is exactly why we're here. But let's see exactly why it matters. And we'll cover a deeper understanding of system change. We'll break it down into its smaller components. We'll describe what it is, because it's a very vague expression, right? What's system change? So we'll go more in depth, and we will understand more deeply the need for system change. We will also cover different approaches. We'll see some case studies, and we will also see how we can potentially overcome some challenges, because yes, there are challenges. And that's why this is interesting. If there were no challenges, it would have been done already, probably, right? But there are challenges, and that's where the opportunity is, because we want to build a better future. And therefore, by overcoming those challenges, we can do so. So let's dive straight in. So we believe that in the future, system changing will be the only formula, the only success formula. Right now, there are traditional models that are clearly insufficient, and we'll see that a bit more in depth. But what the main problem is, intense competition. It's a big issue nowadays that is not really being so beneficial. Now, traditional economics shows there are some advantages to competition, and of course there are, but we also seen disadvantages of intense competition, unhealthy competition. And that's something that is kind of maxed out. We reached a moment where it's very difficult to make progress without really overcoming the paradigm or changing the paradigm. Rapid tech advancement, great. It's great that there's advancement. Now it's very fast, and it's faster and faster. It's exponentially faster, so that can cause some issues, and we'll see exactly what we mean. Climate change is a big one, social inequality, and also, you know what, resources. For very long, the system has been built feeling that resources are unlimited. We just ask more resources, but now we realize, wait a minute, they're not unlimited. We need to take into account that resources are not unlimited. And it's not about simply paying the cost, paying the price. Sometimes there's just no resources, not enough resources to keep using a certain model, which is why we want to take that into account. And therefore, businesses need to evolve very quickly. And we have this acronym, which is VUCA, VUCA, which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And a lot of businesses, the way they react to that is just that, just reacting. So not really engineering a way that is fundamentally going to work in a sustainable and resilient way, but they're just reacting as something happens. And they're not really trying to make the change, they're more reacting to the change. So we want to change this mindset, first of all, from a reactive mindset to a change-making mindset, which is proactive rather than reactive. So imagine companies that rather than seeing obstacles and think, okay, how do I survive in the presence of these obstacles? Imagine companies that think, why don't we influence the environment in a positive way and turn every challenge into an opportunity. So that's exactly what we'll be covering. And that's exactly what the mindset is, the system change mindset. It's a lot more than that. It's not about making tiny tweaks. It's fundamental transformations. So this is what's important. We're talking about structural redesign and the paradigm shift. This is an expression we use quite often here, a paradigm shift. So it's deep change, it's not cosmetics, it's not reactive. So what we really want to do here is ensure that businesses can be a positive force that can really shape society and build a better future. So let's see exactly how to do that. And first of all, why it matters. It matters because right now we are in a situation where traditional models take a lot of resources by consuming resources, take a lot of value. And what they give back might not actually be enough. Traditionally, things have been measured monetarily. So if a company is generating a financial profit, everyone would think, oh, great, the company's creating value. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And the reason is a lot of costs, sometimes called externalities, or simply just cost in terms of different capitals. We'll explain what we mean. Sometimes they are not really considered. So it looks like on the surface that the company is making money, but in reality, not a lot of value has been generated because it's just being turned from different capital, different resources into something else. So making money is not an indication that a company is necessarily creating value. It might be, and generally, if a company is making money, at least there is a chance it's creating value. A company that is not making money, it might still be creating value, but it's traditionally less likely because the capital is not growing, right? It's not a charity. That's a different thing. We're talking about a company. So what happens when a company is only measuring success in terms of financial gains is that a lot of environmental harm can happen because it's not accounted for, and a lot of inequality, social issues. And the reason is, again, this is not tracked. This is not taken into account. Now, the interesting thing is that this also causes problems for people that only look at financial gains. The financial gain now doesn't mean that that is actually sustainable. It's just a very short-term mentality. So even if you like money, love money, you only care about money, great. Even then, you better pay more attention to the environment and the social fabric because, in fact, it's what makes even money more sustainable. And that's exactly why we want to make sure that we can regenerate and truly build every type of capital, including financial capital. We're not against money in any way, shape, or form. In fact, we believe that financial capital is a fantastic resource that also needs to be regenerated. So making a profit, making gains financially is a great practice together with improving the environment and making people's lives better. So the idea of system change is a type of innovation that is not just generating profits, but also protecting nature, promoting social well-being, and reducing inequalities. And I know a lot of people may be thinking, wait, inequality is something inherent to society. There's nothing you can do about that. And I will argue against that because inequality, you know what, maybe 100% equality is not what we're looking for here. Maybe there's some structural inequalities, like not everything or everyone is equal. Great. However, large inequality is a problem because, as we'll see, a lot of organizations just crumble because it just doesn't work out. So rather than ignoring inequality, we can somehow neutralize the effects of inequality and also reduce inequality. If we can reduce inequality, we're already doing great. We're not trying to get something that is 100% equal because that doesn't even mean anything. We're not looking for perfection here. We're not looking for this theoretical utopia. We're looking for something that actually works and is sustainable and is regenerative and can be resilient, anti-fragile, and exist in the future as well. So what we look at here is what we call the net positive value. So not just extracting resources and maybe generating financial gains at the expense of other types of capital, but we are looking for this net positive where companies succeed financially and society also succeeds as well. So In order to do that, what we really want to do is adopt a different type of mindset that I like to call non-zero sum. So right now, there's a lot of zero-sum competition at play. And zero-sum competition means my benefit or my gain needs to come at something or someone else's expenses. So if I think that way, I'm not really adding any value to the world. I'm just transferring value. So I'm sucking value from something or someone and converting that value into value for someone else. And I don't want to do that because that really doesn't lead anywhere and it's not very sustainable. And it's just a fight and a struggle. And it usually generates net losses as well. I mean, at best is zero sum. It might actually be below zero, negative. Net negative, so to speak. But what we're doing here is we are changing the paradigm from a zero-sum competition paradigm to a regenerative economy. Now, the regenerative economy is primarily intended to really benefit people, planet, and profits as well. As I said, it's not just limited to people and planets for profit too. And it's a roadmap. It's not just a panacea, right? It's not just a magic pill. This is a roadmap for a thriving society. So let's explore this blueprint and let's see how this transformation can happen. So what we'll do here, we'll share some case studies, we'll share some strategies, and we'll see exactly how this can be done. So system change. We like this expression, system change. It sounds cool, but what is it all about? So first of all, what's system change versus small incremental tweaks? Now, a system change is something big, it's something bold. It involves fundamental paradigm shift. I told you you would hear this again and again. And it really goes beyond just the organization itself. It impacts the entire business ecosystem. So if you're running a company, if you're building a company, if you have an organization in general, when you think about system change, you're not thinking just that particular company or organization. You're thinking about the entire ecosystem as well. This is a huge mindset shift already. So you are thinking systemically. Now, we talk about deep transformation because it's not just cosmetics. As I said, we are changing foundations, culture, processes, technologies, policies, you name it. Now, it does take time. It does take resources and effort, generally compared to small incremental change, but the payoff can be much, much higher. And just a couple of examples, because I like this conversation to be practical, not just theoretical. We're talking about embedding strong legal protections, for example, or revamping a business model, adopting new technologies across the board, shifting to sustainability and beyond to regeneration and positive outcomes. So those are examples, practical examples of system change. This is very different, as I said, from incremental change, which typically involves small steps, which are little tweaks here and there, gradual changes. They're useful. I'm not against those, but they do not yield the same benefits as system change. They're easier, they're less disruptive. So it's simpler to implement. It doesn't really shake things up too much. It's just something that brings some little benefits here and there. Minor process improvements, for example, so a small tech upgrade or tweaking existing policies, very different from embedding strong legal protection, right? I believe you're really getting a feel for it now. A small little tweak or deep change. So that's what you want to think about when you think of this difference between system change and incremental tweaks. And limitations. Incremental change will not tackle the complex, wicked problems such as climate change, resource depletion, or social inequalities. So by only making incremental changes, we will simply not be able to really address these issues. That's why we're now talking about system change. It's more of a necessity than anything else. Even if it wasn't a necessity, it would be extremely beneficial, but right now it's also a necessity. So that's why it's about time. We can't really wait any longer. So you get the understanding of it, and let's talk about the ingredients of system change, which is legal foundations, organizational culture, processes, technology, and policy. And again, I do encourage you to download this and go through this PDF in your own time as well, because there's a lot in here, a lot of value you can get from it, especially if you read between the lines. But let's cover this foundational structural change. First of all, power to the people. So it's possible to legally empower stakeholders in decision making. That's a big one. And if you think about organizations where only one class of stakeholders, or even worse, a very small number of stakeholders are involved in decision making, now empowering every stakeholders to have at least some decision-making power, that's already a massive change, and that's effectively a foundational structural change. Nature, it's a big one. Can we legally protect nature so that we safeguard the environment? And can we incorporate that, not just as, let's say, from an external point of view, a policy level, when the government has some policies and the business has to follow those policies, but can the company have some deep legal protection embedded in the company itself so that nature is protected? That's very different and a lot better, of course. A multi-capital consideration. So again, I already used this language before. I know I didn't introduce it that much. The idea is really understand there's different types of capital. So financial capital is just one type, but then nature can be considered a capital in itself. And obviously, we often use this term environmental capital, and obviously social capital. So people, that's also very important. Sometimes we talk about the 3 Ps, so people, planet, profit. But there's a lot more to that as well. And we can also think in terms of more types of capital, but we're not going to go in that direction today. Now, what's deep change in terms of organizational culture? Shared values and beliefs. So if we can effectively address the collective mindset that an organization has, that can lead to system change as well. And in a way, it's what we're doing right now. We are talking about mindset, we're talking about values and beliefs. So that's also quite important. Obviously, we're doing that on a very superficial level right now, or let's say more entry level. I wouldn't say superficial, it's more like an entry level. But that's something that can be done for an organization in terms of culture. Adapting and thriving, very important. A strong, flexible culture really encourages innovation, teamwork, and openness to new ideas. So that's important. We've seen a lot of organizations really collapse because they did not embrace innovation, and sometimes not having a space, not having an opportunity to really innovate and simply just being open to new ideas. Like we can mention companies like Blockbuster, Nokia, BlackBerry, all these companies that didn't really innovate when it was about time to innovate. And one of the reasons is, I mean, we're not going to discuss this in depth, but one of the reasons is not being open to innovation, not having a culture that really favors new ideas, shutting them down as they arise. That was a big problem. Now, leadership matters. It's very important. And culture is something that happens where leaders are in place. And if you're watching this right now, you're probably one of those leaders, or maybe you want to become one of those leaders. And when we talk about leadership, we're not talking about a guru that has followers. We're talking about very different type of leader, a conscious leader, someone that really understands what direction the world should take, but also empowers others. So I like this saying, bad leaders make followers, good leaders make other leaders, right? So that's what we want to do here right now. And that's why we are talking a lot about leadership and how to really foster change. So clear communication is crucial. Engagement for employees is crucial. How do you really shift people's mindset or culture without having strong engagement? It's challenging, right? So that's why these are all extremely important things to consider. And when we look at processes, changing the way things get done is important. Optimizing things for success. When we really combine things, so efficiency, performance, and everything, again, it's not just cosmetics, we are going deeper than that. And embracing new practices, advanced tech can be actually a good force for good, and also different management methods as well, lean methodologies. So managing teams differently is a big one as well. So not limited to that, technology. So the tools of the trade. Now, of course, it's possible to use technology to achieve that deep transformation. And innovation is critical. We talked about that. Of course, right now, we are kind of blessed in a way to have these systems or these new technologies like AI, blockchain, IoT, and you name it, machine learning, advanced analytics. There's some overlap in there as well. But we are really experiencing such a level of innovation that it's insane to believe that we cannot get massive benefits from that. But in order to do that, we need the right culture and the right approach. So that's why we are doing this right now. And DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. Again, we talk about DAOs, of course, as an organizational tool, but at the same time, there's a big tech element that can be utilized related to blockchain as well. So distributed ledger technology that can enable collective decision making. And talking about policy, that's a big category as well. So guidelines for all, making it simple for people to have guidelines, policies that guide people's behavior, decisions. And again, they can be co-created by the collective. So it's not just one person or a small number of seniors that write those. It's really a co-creation. It's important to be in sync with the times. So just not doing things based on past reflections, but really about current and future societal trends, understanding evolving regulations, evolving goals. Things change. So being in sync with that type of change, and radical transparency is huge as well. We've seen so many examples where transparency really makes a big difference when it comes to getting results as well, and engagement is a big one. So when an organization is transparent, people are a lot more engaged, and ultimately things can really evolve in a much better way. So by focusing on these areas, we do believe that it's possible to create a lasting net positive impact. So that's why you really want to go through all this in your own time as well, and really get a deep connection with everything we discussed so far, because it's going to make a huge difference when you really utilize all this to make and create lasting change. Now, we spoke about environmental, social, and economic challenges. We said sometimes we talk about the 3 Ps. Yes, we want to overcome all of them, not one at the expense of the other. This is crucial. So challenges are so different. Challenges have a lot of different elements within some challenge, right? So it's not a simple challenge, it's a complex challenge, multiple complex challenges that we're facing right now. That's why we need much better tools to address those challenges. Now, when we talk about the environment, climate change is a big one, of course, and businesses must adapt to the impact of climate change. So regulations is something, but it's also physical risks. There's a change in market demands and all sort of different things. So that's something to consider. Resources are being depleted. We spoke about that already. So that's something to also consider if you're a leader. And pollution, that's a huge one. I mean, I know people talk about it, but I don't think we talk about this enough. Pollution is huge, and that needs to be addressed. Waste needs to be managed, not just to comply with regulations, but also to ensure we don't pollute the environment too much until there's no way back. So that's critical. It's critical to protect our vital natural ecosystems, and ensure that, luckily, a lot of consumers understand that, and they're already increasing demands for environmentally friendly practices or products or services. And that's why this needs to be taken into account. Social issues. Social inequality, we spoke about that. Again, income inequality can be an issue. Now, again, when I talk about income inequality, I'm not talking about people having different wages. I mean, it's fair enough. Income can be also a function of the value added. But what if there's some major unfairness in the process that creates barriers that create problems? Because massive inequality is actually a problem. And everyone can be better off if we reduce inequality. Some people have this wrong belief that if some individuals have a lot of money, they're much better off than anyone else if others have less and less. It's actually not true. So if there's less inequality, if the gap is smaller, even the ones at the top are actually better off. So that's why we are creating this non-zero sum solution, because once these systems are implemented, everyone can really be better. And a very simple example is social stability, right? There's so many examples where revolutions happen and the people at the top, all of a sudden, they were destroyed by the people at the bottom, and then this thing happened over and over again. And that's why it's not sustainable, because we don't want this. We don't want this adversarial relationship between people that are doing quote unquote better than others in terms of accruing resources, because at the end of the day, this just doesn't work for anyone. And we really want to create a system where everyone's better off. And we see that it's possible, we see that it's doable. It's just about doing it and having enough people that are actively participating. That's why I'm really glad and grateful that you're here right now, because if you're watching this, it means you want to participate in this big change, big shift, which has to happen anyway. How else are we going to stay on this planet without destroying it? So certainly it's a very exciting moment. And let's talk about diversity and inclusion. So that's something as well. And again, these are sometimes controversial topics, sometimes misunderstood topics. We're not talking about, there's probably a lot of news that talk about diversity and inclusion, but without necessarily addressing the true nature of it. You know, we're not talking about just little things here and there that don't really matter, just a way to distract people. We're talking about really diversity is a resource, and it's beautiful. Okay, it's beautiful to have diversity. How can we use that as a resource? And inclusion as well, having all the stakeholders included really benefits everyone. It's something I can't stress enough. It's, again, it's not take from one person to give to another person. It's really benefiting everyone by having a better system. Consumer expectations, we talked about that. Brand loyalty is a big one now. So being in line with the change they want to see in the world is very important for organizations as well. And economic issues. So market volatility, huge volatility right now in the markets. And that's why organizations need to be resilient, need to be agile, need to be anti-fragile, because things are volatile. Everything is changing so much. Technology is more and more disruptive. In fact, rapid technological advancements can really render existing business models obsolete in a very short period of time. So that's why it's very important to adapt and innovate continually. And yes, competition nowadays is global. Gone are the days where you're only competing with your next door neighbor. Right now, competition is global. It's not even on a country level, it's really worldwide. So that's something to consider. And that's why we are here to rescue leaders. You are in the right place at the right time, because we need you, because you have a very important role in sparking system change. So effective leadership is crucial for driving systemic change within organizations. Now, the reason leaders play a very important role in shaping this vision is because through leaders, we can really achieve much deeper change than just by simply reacting here and there. Now, let's talk about visionary leadership. So it's very important for leaders to be able to articulate a clear, compelling vision for the type of change that we want to see. So net positive, regenerative. This is the type of vision we are fostering. And we talk about long-term goals. Again, a lot of the issues we're seeing in the world is this short-term focus. So we want to go long-term and focusing on values that are more based on long-term gains rather than short-term gains. Also, inspiring and motivating employees or members of an organization is really critical right now. For so many people, when engagement is low, it's just so difficult to take action. So even if someone says, "Oh yeah, I care about the planet," "Oh yeah, yeah, sure, this is important to me," but if the engagement is low, if they're not inspired and motivated, they probably won't take big action. And we need big and bold action, as we said. So that's why a visionary leader is needed, because without that, it's just harder to get people to move. And I'm not talking about, again, one leader that makes followers. We're talking about leaders that empower people to become leaders as well. So that's what the opportunity is right now. And that's how things that were previously considered impossible all of a sudden become possible. And not only possible, but they become reality. And that's why we are doing this. Now, strategic direction. So leaders, if they're doing the job effectively, they're developing and implementing strategies that address organizations' challenges in a way that is related to leveraging the organization's own strengths. So understanding not only what the weaknesses are, but also what the strengths are, and really playing with that and making sure that strengths are utilized and weaknesses are addressed too. Now, efficient allocation of resources is absolutely critical, but when we talk about efficiency, we don't want to forget effectiveness. So we want to make sure that the resources are utilized in a way that is fully aligned with the strategic direction. So many times I see companies getting sidetracked and thinking, oh, I can do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then they just get sidetracked. And even if they get some return from what they do, it's still eventually a loss when you expand your time horizon, because the company was not following the right strategic direction. So that's very important as well. So we spoke about cultural change, and we like to think of decentralization. That's a big thing. We spoke about DAOs. So moving from a centralized central point of failure where one person or a small group of people is making decisions versus having a distributed authority structure where people have more autonomy, people are trusted. It's a big one. That's something that is going to make a big shift. So leaders really need to learn to let go. And I know it's challenging. We don't really learn very easily how to let go. We can learn, of course, and it's not something that is given very often to our society, right? We speak about control all the time. We see examples of overly controlling behaviors, right? So very important to be able to let go, but let go in a smart way, in a functional way, not just ignoring or neglecting. That doesn't work. So it's all about building the systems that enables power to be decentralized. Because if the right systems and blueprints are not in place, of course you can't let go. It's like living a little kid alone without help. Like, it's not going to work, right? You want to have the right systems in place, but only once you have the systems in place, then it's easier to let go, because you know that the systems are going to enable people to do what they do best, which is different for everyone, of course, but only by trusting people, magic can happen. And that's why it's very important to be able to let go while the right systems are in place. Cultivating culture that embraces change. So if leaders are opposed to change or very stifled and very rigid in their understanding of change, improvement won't happen. But having a culture that embraces change and really allows for different people to bring their own unique perspectives, that's what really makes the difference. And we speak a lot about collaboration, accountability, adaptability. So those are the values the leaders can promote. And stakeholder engagement. So yes, different stakeholders, such as employees, customers, investors, not limited to that, but everyone who has a stake, really, they need to be involved. They need to be engaged, because that's the only way to really get the benefits that we want to get. And communication with stakeholders is critical. So again, transparency is crucial and collaboration is crucial as well. And that's how we can build that resilience and build that adaptability. So yes, there'll be challenges, and there will always be challenges. We're not destroying challenges, eliminating challenges. It's not possible. What we're doing here is we are finding a new configuration where we can adapt and rise to the challenge, so that yes, in 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, there'll be new challenges. There'll be tools and systems to overcome those challenges. And proactivity is critical as well. As I said, being reactive, unfortunately, no longer makes the cut. We need to be proactive, identifying disruptions as quickly as possible, and being agile in responding to those, because sometimes you just don't see that. Sometimes, even with the great intentions and skill, sometimes things just happen unexpectedly, and it's important to be agile. So that's how we can really achieve what we call the regenerative growth and impact. And yes, it's complex. Yes, it involves a few elements, but once we do it, and again, we can do it all together through collaboration and putting the right systems in place. Now, let's talk about going green, which is well, let's talk about innovative approaches, right? So we talk about going green with the circular economy, a green supply chain, and renewable energy. So with circular economy, the aim of circular economy is really to minimize waste. And it's not just about reducing it. This is an important thing, right? So we're not just thinking, hey, let's just reduce waste. Let's just make less waste and it's better. That's still a linear thinking. It's really about making the most of the resources and thinking of ways just as we think of everything else, and resources as well. So how can we understand that we're not just going from A to B here? We're building something that needs to survive and thrive for decades and hundreds of years or even thousands of years. So the way we do it is not just thinking, oh, how can we waste less? That just doesn't work. So we are completely shifting the paradigm. So it starts from designing a product, not just thinking, okay, I designed a product, it cost me that much to produce, it's going to be used for a while, then we throw it away, and let's just make sure we don't throw away too much. No. We design a product, first of all, for longevity. So we want a product to last as long as possible. Then reuse. So why can't we use that product again and again and again? And then why can we recycle either the product itself, or maybe in this case, we talk about recycling versus reusing. We can recycle the components, the resources. So this means we're creating a closed loop system where materials can be repurposed. So we're no longer thinking, okay, this is what I extract, this is what I use, this is what I waste. We're thinking longevity, reuse, recycling. We're really thinking in a circular way. How can we repurpose the same materials over and over again? And that's how we're no longer facing those barriers. That's, hey, wait a minute, there's no more resources left. What are we going to do right now? Now, a couple of quick examples. Philips, IKEA, they already adopted some circular economy principles. For example, they designed products that can be disassembled very easily and recycled, and they actually use recycled products as well in production. So that's already a big step forward. Now, green supply chain. So reducing the impact, again, it's important. It's more than that. Sourcing raw materials, distribution, disposal. So just making sure that all that doesn't happen at great cost for the environment. Unilever is a big example of that with sustainable sourcing programs. And it works with suppliers to improve environmental and social practices. So again, having close relationship with suppliers, that's also a big way to really ensure that the impact is positive on the environments and on the social capital, so to speak. So sustainable agriculture is something else that is involved in that as well. So definitely something to consider. And then obviously, pretty sure you heard of this before, renewable energy. Now, yes, it is extremely important to transition to renewables such as solar, wind, hydropower, and any resources really where we don't have these major constraints. You know, if we keep using oil, for example, we're limited. So other than the great environmental cost and burning and pollution and everything else, there's just not enough of it. So we can never really think long term if we use resources that are not going to be here forever. So that's why very important to think renewables. And let's talk about Google. Google has committed to running its data centers on 100% renewable energy. So that's a commitment. Let's see what happens. But the commitment is there so far. Great to see. And again, it's not just green supply chain and everything else. It's also about technology. We mentioned blockchain. Now, blockchain technology provides transparency, which is massive, as we've seen already. Transparency is one of the most important ingredients in our new society, because through transparency, we can really trust others and be trusted. And having that trust allows everyone to really be engaged and participate and provide value. Now, security is also a big advantage of blockchain, immutability, right? I mean, for the ones of you that are not too familiar with blockchain, I do suggest you go deeper. because there are so many unique elements of blockchain, and we'll have specific courses as well on blockchain and what matters to us from blockchain. So if you want to go deeper, make sure you stay tuned. There'll be more of this. And supply chain management is definitely one of the major use cases for blockchain. Traceability of products and everything else. So that's definitely a big one. And IBM's Food Trust blockchain is a good example. So IBM actually created this, and retailers, consumers, they can simply trace the origin of each product, talking about food products, which means it's safer, and there's actually less room for fraud, which is kind of cool. It's always nice to reduce that. And now AI. We could speak about AI forever, but let's be brief here. AI can enhance decision making, can really help us predict. I mean, AI is really great for analytics. So efficiency is another thing as well. So using AI in an intelligent way can really help us get massive benefits at 360 degrees. So the Ocean Cleanup, it's a nonprofit organization, and they use AI to tackle ocean plastic pollution. So this system it's actually powered by AI. But the interesting thing about the Ocean Cleanup is they can do most of this autonomously. So not just the data, but also the actual collection. So we can actually have systems powered by AI that can do a lot of things that humans would struggle to do, or maybe still do, or sometimes just not being able to do at all, or sometimes still be able to do, but at much greater cost. So AI is able to do that a lot more seamlessly. IoT, the Internet of Things, that's very important as well, because having that level of connection between devices and real-time data collection, and obviously data can be analyzed, that's something that can make things a lot more efficient. Operations, resource management, and ultimately improve customer experience. So that's really a big leverage nowadays as well. And Siemens uses IoT to monitor and optimize manufacturing processes. So again, downtime can be reduced, energy consumption can be reduced, and product quality can be enhanced by using IoT. So that's definitely a good example. And we spoke about legal. So what legal foundations do we need to have in place in order to achieve all this? And there's multiple options. We're going to name a few here. Platform cooperatives, that's a very interesting one. It's basically digital platforms that are owned and governed by the users themselves. Now, the users or the workers as well, it's typically like you got users and workers, and they both major stakeholders, of course. So being able to govern the platform is actually critical, because if they're workers, if they're users, they kind of depend on the platform. So being able to govern that, it's extremely useful as well, because they really know what matters, and they have a very strong vested interest in ensuring that the platform has the best possible outcome. So that's why this fairer distribution of power, fairer distribution of value really benefits everyone, and it benefits the organization as well. Stocksy United is an example of a platform cooperative, so you may want to check it out. We got B Corps. B Corps are companies that are actually for profit, but they're certified to meet certain standards. So that's good to know. And again, there's a balance between profit and purpose. Yeah. So again, people, planet, profit. So B Corps, again, they are for profit, and they have a certification in place. And Patagonia is a good example of that, certified B Corp. So that's something you may want to look into. Then we have DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And DAOs are organizations that are governed by smart contracts on blockchain platforms, and they enable decentralized decision making without the need for that traditional hierarchical structures. Now, the good thing about DAOs is that it really leverages technology, and we spoke about technology, for example, blockchain technology, to ensure that people can easily do something that it's clearly beneficial, but it was kind of harder to do before. Like, how do you make collective decision making seamless? And these technologies like blockchain really allow that. So now, yes, it's getting easier and easier thanks to DAOs and blockchain technology to make collective decisions in a very simple way. And MakerDAO is a good example. So again, you may want to check it out. MakerDAO, decentralized finance project, DeFi. Let's speak about a fair shares commons as well, which is a model for shared ownership. And what matters in the fair shares commons is, first of all, that a company or an organization that is based on the fair shares has a lot more equitable distribution of wealth and power among stakeholders. So it really involves all the stakeholders compared to a traditional company. But also, we've got the fair shares, and then we've got the fair shares commons, which again is an extension. And the fair shares commons really treats companies as a free entity. So fair shares has this fair distribution of wealth and power. It's still more traditionally oriented to a traditional concept of property, whereas the fair shares commons really goes one step beyond that, and it treats companies as commons almost, so as free independent entities. Resonate is an example of that. So they're in the music streaming service, so really interesting concept. And they are using a fair shares model. Yeah, so I explain very briefly what the difference is. Fair shares model, so it's an early iteration. Again, the fair shares, it's a very flexible model, and many shapes and forms of fair shares are possible, one of which is the fair shares commons, as I said, which goes one step beyond, one step further, and really treats companies as free. So what really matters is this multi-stakeholder element. Similar to a cooperative, you could see that as some sort of extension or enhancement of a co-op, but again, it goes further than that. So these approaches are really, really important, because that's the type of innovation that is deep foundational innovation on a legal level, policy level, decision-making level, and so on. So that's really something that is driving positive change. Now, we got some case studies. And again, I do encourage you to check this out for yourself. And we spoke about some of these companies already. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Again, you can read this real quick if you go through the PDF yourself, or you can simply read more by doing your own research on these companies here. So you can have a quick look here and find out. So we spoke about Unilever. Vivo Barefoot is a very interesting case as well. Effectively, it's a company that historically has always been about sustainability, using materials that are very ecological and so on. But right now, actually, a few years ago, they made a big change where they decided to really adopt a regenerative model. So very interesting case as well, which I encourage you to explore further. And Berserk is a big one as well that you want to research as well. It's actually a Dutch home nursing care provider, and they have a very interesting model as well, because they operate with self-managing teams. And we've seen that having different hierarchical structures can really benefit organizations. So if you're interested in this type of structures, definitely check it out. Nuclear, this is for steel workers. So again, innovation doesn't just happen. It's like fancy concepts and so on. This is a steel industry, and it's a very traditional industry in a way, but a lot of innovation can happen there. So very interesting case. Again, self-managing teams. They're doing that in a way where people can really bring their own ideas, fresh ideas and innovation. And that's how they were able to come up with new steel products. So again, even in an industry that is extremely traditional and old-fashioned, there's a lot of innovation possible. And these new systems of organization, so self-managing teams in this case, can really allow for innovation in these environments and this industry. So that's a great example. Again, we mentioned Patagonia a moment ago as well. And last but not least, ColivingDAO, which effectively is launching a federation of community-led co-living spaces. So when we talk about ColivingDAO, we're talking about co-living, of course, but it's a lot more than that. The element of decentralization is a big thing. So you want to imagine this idea of decentralized living effectively. So we're changing the paradigm, not just for the way a company is managed or teams are managed and resources, technology, and so on, but it's the living itself that is being disrupted in a very, very beneficial way. So right now, there are a lot of constraints, a lot of limitations when it comes to the options for property ownership or for community living. This is something that is changing, and it's changing a lot also thanks to ColivingDAO. We will talk a lot about ColivingDAO, of course. I'm not going to spend too much time on this right now. But certainly, if you're interested in property ownership, watch your space, because we'll have courses on property ownership as well, and what the limitations are with this right now. And you can find resources on our website as well, of course, ColivingDAO.com, if you want to read more about ColivingDAO and about property ownership. But the idea is to really enable the formation of decentralized autonomous co-living communities that have a fair share of wealth and power. And the residents have a voice, and the workers have a voice, and everyone else involved, including the investors, have a voice as well. And this is something that's really making a huge difference, especially in the age of digital nomadism. Collaborative resource sharing is more and more important, and changing the idea of urban, suburban, and rural living in a way that is more community driven and is more functional to the direction the world is taking is something that you definitely want to look into as well. So challenges, yes, there are challenges. And if there were no challenges, we wouldn't even need this conversation. So the presence of challenges is really suggesting that the potential reward is massive. Let's see not just how to overcome challenges, but also how to embrace challenges and make sure that we can really realize the vision where these challenges are naturally blending into the new reality. So what's in the way and how we are going to win together? First of all, a big barrier is resistance to change. So if you currently work in an organization, maybe you're already a leader, I'm pretty sure you're already extremely familiar with this resistance to change. Yes, it's human. Yes, it's common. People are used to a certain way of doing things. Why would they change that? Yes, familiar routines are hard to shift, but it's possible to change that. And the way we address that is, first of all, as leaders, because this happens to everyone. No, it's not just we are fighting against others, right? This happens to everyone. It's present in ourselves as well. So first of all, for leaders, learning to trust others. It's extremely important to trust other people, letting go. We spoke about that. But also empowering others, and also making sure there is enough facilitation, enough coaching, enough help and support to really enable people to do something different, something that they were not used to doing before. So having the right blueprints in place and the right support can really help people change the mindset around freedom, around empowerment, around openness to new ideas and new ways of doing things. And that's how we can achieve this level of transformation. Obviously, legal foundation is important in this as well. So resistance to change sometimes is also something that goes hand in hand with legal foundations. And that's why it's important to embed protection in the legal foundation as well. Resource constraints. Sometimes access to resource can be difficult. And when I speak about resources, I'm not just talking about physical raw materials, stuff like that. I'm talking about resources. It could be legal expertise. It could be financial capital, human capital, tech. And sometimes it feels like, oh yeah, we don't have easy access to these resources. Let's just not change or not change in this direction. And this can actually, it's very sad sometimes, because this initial perception of cost, or maybe real cost to absorb in the beginning, but then the price that we pay for not embracing change is a lot higher. So again, this is not about cost, it's all about short-term versus long-term. it's all about overcoming this short-term bias where a cost in the short term feels like a big deal, whereas benefits in the future, we don't even feel like, yeah, in the future, we don't feel like it's that important, but it is important and it's actually vital. And right now we need that not just to thrive, but also survive. And of course, we want to thrive. So that's why it's very important to abandon this short-term bias and understand that the price we pay in the long term is a lot higher. So when we speak about natural resources, natural ecosystems, nature has the answers already. Strategic partnerships with external system change organizations, such as industry networks, government agencies, and research institutions, can really help organizations overcome the constraints. So that's a route to take. Pooling resources is a big one as well. Why not combine the power that we have in multiple organizations and multiple stakeholders? Why not collaborate, sharing risks, leveraging collective expertise? These are all ways to really overcome these barriers and make sure that we can realize the vision that we want. So again, it's all about understanding that this is a shared journey. So that's a huge mindset shift, I would say. It's not just an individual, it's not just a single organization, it's an ecosystem. Regulations can get in the way as well, and maybe some of you already experienced that. It can be very, very frustrating. And how to win? So first of all, embracing innovation. Embracing innovation is huge. And yeah, regulations, I mean, there's only so much we can do if we're not involved with that. You may be thinking, right? So the first thing is really, okay, regulations should be operating this way as well. Really, policymakers should be watching this video right now. that would help, right? So if policymakers are watching this video, it would help, but it's not just that. Like, there's a lot we can do. We can build relationships and we can really promote and foster innovation. At the end of the day, a lot of goals are really aligned. So if a regulation is in place that is getting in the way, if it's really getting in the way, it's probably in everyone's interest to have that removed or changed or adapt, and regulations will evolve and do evolve constantly. So again, it's all about innovation. It's about understanding that innovation can happen in different ways. But bottom-up innovation is the type of innovation that historically has made the biggest impact. So changing internal regulation. So if we talk about the organization itself, not like external, but internal regulations and policies, allowing for the things that haven't been allowed so far that would really enable massive, massive benefits, such as bottom-up, for example, bottom-up innovation, valuing creativity, valuing contributions by everyone at every level of the organization. That's something that can really make a big difference. So again, abandoning conventional thinking and encouraging everyone in the organization to abandon conventional thinking, that's what can increase agility, can increase flexibility. And yes, regulations will change and the company will need to adapt, but we can all do that once we adopt this mindset. So again, it's a very interesting topic as well. And yes, just to conclude, there are barriers and they can be complex, but we can overcome that. And as I said before, we can adopt a different mindset where challenges are always going to be there. So let's design systems that allow for the presence of challenges so that everything blends into this new vision that we're creating, and that ultimately every day we can be one step closer to where we want to be. So a quick recap. What we've done today is we've seen how organizations can really become more proactive and they can effectively become system changing agents. And one more time, paradigm shift, that's a big one. So how to shift the paradigm, how to increase performance, but also at the same time, shape society in a positive way. That is something that is possible and I would say very much needed. So that's why we're here and we are moving away from this small incremental business as usual type of little tweaks here and there and addressing the root and really going for transformative change. Big and bold, that's why we're here. And that's an opportunity. So, bit of a call to action here. If you are a leader, if you want to be a leader, this is really the place for you. I'm glad that you took the time to watch this video. I hope you learned a few things here. I hope this all resonated with you as well. And by all means, reach out. Let's start some discussions so you have the opportunity to contribute as well, because we spoke about empowerment, we spoke about any level of innovation. Innovation is something that can happen at any level, really. And I do encourage everyone to think creatively and contribute. So if you have any ideas or questions or anything, make sure you ask. You can do that in multiple ways. A very simple way, of course, is just head over to ColivingDAO.com, and that's a way to find out more, because yes, there is a lot more, but do get in touch, do reach out, and more importantly, do contribute as well. We would love to have your contribution, because this is very much of a collaboration. So thank you very much for being here. There's a few more resources here. You can have a quick look at that if you want to read some books or check out additional resources. Other than that, I do encourage you to head over to ColivingDAO.com, where you'll find a lot more resources too. But thanks for being here, and we'll be back very, very soon. So make sure you keep watching the space.